Meet the Candidates, a show that brings you face-to-face with candidates running for federal, state, and local offices. Our Constitution empowers we the people to protect our country's future through the ballot box, a privilege and responsibility that many countries don't have. This sacred privilege gives you, the voter, the power to hire good leaders, while at the same time to fire bad leaders. We have the privilege of living in the greatest country in the world, but it'll only stay that way if we empower good leaders to lead. So this journey, if you'll go with me, will enable us to find out more about each candidate. Where do they stand on things like immigration, domestic as well as international policy? These are some of the questions that we're going to explore on Meet the Candidates. So stay tuned, let's go, get your notepads out, and let's find out who we need to vote for, who is going to protect us and sacrifice for us with the passion that they must have in order to keep America great. I'm Billy Graff, your host. Welcome to Meet the Candidate. Today's special guest is Ryan Jarchow. He is a candidate for, that's right, CD8. Ryan, glad to see you today.
Thanks for having me back, Billy.
And this is our first segment of every show. It's called the Life segment. And what we really want to do is just tell us a little bit about you and your family and just kind of what's happening.
Oh, well, interesting story. Most people don't believe me, but I was actually born in Saudi Arabia. Now, both my parents are American. My dad worked for an oil company over there, and I just happened to be born when they were living in Saudi Arabia.
You lost your tan.
Yeah, I don't tan very well. It's surprising. But before I was a year old, both my parents moved back to the States, and I grew up mostly in North Carolina and Georgia before I got married and moved to Texas with my wife. Her family lives out here, so
Okay.
I thought it'd be nice if she got to spend a little bit of time with them because she lives in Georgia for so long.
Wow.
And I got the chance to live by my family, so now she's
Awesome.
getting the chance to live with her. So I like it out here, though. It's nice and hot.
Nice and hot. Well, it's a great time of the year to be here in Texas. And tell me a little bit about some of your most accomplished accomplishments in your life.
Well, when I was in high school, I was a musician. I played oboe, and I went to All-State, and
Wow.
been a traveling performer for a while. I mean, it was a while ago at this point, but
Yeah, you're so old, Ryan.
I'm almost 35, which it wakes me up in the morning, and I'm like, really? But yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I worked as an entertainer for a while, and I even got on TV once. So that was
Wow.
fun. It was funny because it was about a year or two before I became actually hired on by a sheriff's office. I worked as an officer on a TV show.
Oh, my goodness.
And now I always wonder, did one influence the other?
Yeah, exactly. Well, tell us about your public service experience. Do you have some?
Well, working in law enforcement back in Georgia, that was an amazing experience. I loved every second of it. It was basically my dream job. It's what I had always wanted to do. But after being there, I met the woman who is now my wife, and not at the jail.
Okay, I'm about to say, was she one of the incarcerated?
No,
or?
she was not.
Okay.
But I wanted to marry her, and life circumstances were not going to allow me to both marry her and continue to work for that sheriff's office. So I left the sheriff's office, and I moved out here to Texas with my wife, and I don't regret it. I'll probably always miss law enforcement,
Sure.
but she's the love of my life, and
Wow.
I can't regret a second of it.
Hey, we're glad you're here. Hey, we're glad you found Texas, and Texas is a great place to live. It's definitely a great place to build a family. So here's the big question. What in the world were you thinking when you said, I want to run for Congress?
I'm still wondering that myself. Now, I think I was just as fed up as everybody else after seeing the 2020 election. I was just like, this is insanity. And no matter what happened in the 2020 election, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Right.
And then all of our elected representatives were going this way, they were going that way, and there was no cohesiveness, even within the Republican Party. And so I said, you know what? I'm tired of watching everybody else go out there and fail and run around like chickens with their heads cut off. I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to do it myself.
Okay.
I'm a working class American. I have a day job. If I can run for office, anybody can. And my suggestion is that everybody do it. If you're a conservative, go out and run for office. Because not all of us have to win, but think if 10 or 20% of conservatives like me start winning, that would be a game changer. We would take this country back. There wouldn't be any more talk of socialism, and the free markets would reign like they're supposed to.
All right. Well, I know it sounds like you've had quite a few different opportunities in jobs and life experiences. What kind of experiences do you think that you've already participated in your work that really prepare you and qualify you to be a representative in the great state of Texas?
That's a good question. It's interesting because this is my first foray into politics. But then you start remembering the founders of the Constitution, they were in their 20s and early 30s. You don't have to be this Nancy Pelosi, how old is she? Like 700 years old? I'm not sure. But you don't have to be one of these people that spends their entire life in politics. You don't have to be what is known as a career politician. You can actually just have good ideas, want to do what's best for the American people, and run for office. Okay. I know it's a foreign concept, but believe me, if more people would do this, and if we would elect more people who just simply wanted to do what was right for America, things would get better. It doesn't always have to be about politics. It doesn't always have to be about political elitists. It can simply just be about making America great.
Great. Well, let me ask you this then. If you're elected, what would be your first priority when you get into office?
Well, for me, I am 100% pro-life, and it wasn't that long ago we had a Republican-controlled House, Senate, and presidency. And then what did we see? Almost no movement on the topic. We see a little bit of defunding of Planned Parenthood, and that's about it. And that topic just keeps going back and forth. For starters, yes, 100%, defund Planned Parenthood. They commit abortions. That is most of what they do. But further than that, I would also try to write bills to ban abortion, 100%. It is the murder of a baby. This isn't my belief. This is what medical science tells us. Now, having this argument with somebody on the opposite side, if you want to start off the argument by saying, yes, it is a child, now should we be able to murder it? Then we can have an honest discussion going forth. But you almost never hear that. It's always, you're a right-wing conspiracy theorist, and it's not a baby, it's a clump of cells. No, it is a human child growing inside of a mother. Two separate entities, two separate strands of DNA, two sets of hands and feet. It is not one person. So yes, I'm 100% pro-life, and I think one of the things that we should focus on immediately is overturning Roe v. Wade and ending abortion.
You sound very passionate about that topic.
I am. I was born a preemie, actually. I was born about 3 months premature myself. And right now, someone like me could have been killed in the womb. I'm very thankful that I wasn't, but it happens every single day here in the United States. This person standing in front of you, it was legally and still is legally possible for me to have been murdered in the womb, or someone in my circumstance that would have been born premature. So yeah, it is personal to me, and I think the more educating we do to people, the more they learn about what abortion actually is, the more people turn pro-life. I'm seeing the pro-life movement grow day by day, and it's not slowing down. It's accelerating. And I really do think soon we'll see the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and it'll probably be state by state that starts outlawing abortion, but I think we're moving in that direction, and I'm very hopeful for it.
Well, great. Well, that ends our easy questions.
Okay.
We're getting ready to move to our liberty section, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Ryan about his ideas on liberty in America. We'll be right back. Welcome to the Liberty section. This administration now is spending trillions and trillions of dollars that it doesn't even have, creating debt that is going to be the responsibility of our children and our grandchildren. And my question is really simple, Ryan. Would you vote on another budget that increases more deficit debt to our country?
I mean, obviously the easy answer is no, right?
Right.
And every single day we keep hearing politicians say this, they're not going to vote to increase the debt ceiling. They're going to start paying off our deficit. It never happens. So let me put this as bluntly as I can. I will never vote to raise your taxes. I will never vote to put through a bill that doesn't balance the budget. If we simply stop allowing politicians to get away with spending more money than they take in, the situation could be fixed. Will it be difficult? Yes, but there is a solution. Here it is. You simply take away about 10% of what the government takes in every year and you save it. Rather than spending more than what you take in, you use that money to start paying off the interest on the debt. After long enough, the American GDP will grow to the point where we can actually pay off even a $30 trillion debt. Because right now, our GDP is somewhere around $20 trillion a year. 100 years from now, it might be $100 trillion a year. At that point, where the government usually takes in about 17% of the GDP in taxes every year, no matter what they do with tax rates, it's always about 17% of the GDP. We'd be able to pay off our debt, but not if we keep increasing it. If we keep increasing it at this rate every single year, we add $10 trillion to the deficit, there will be no coming back from it. And this is the number one thing that worries me.
But we're at $30 trillion debt right now. Is there really any way to come back at this? I mean, have we crossed over the top of the mountain?
I mean, that is what worries me. Nobody knows. The greatest economic minds of our time battle back and forth on this question. How much of a deficit can we have? How much money can we spend? And just the simple fact that there is an argument back and forth between people that spend their entire lives studying this very situation, that should give great cause and concern to even the leftist of Democrats. If somebody's coming along saying, hey, you know what, this one thing that might actually destroy America is right here on our doorstep, and you're not willing to do anything about it, you have to wonder, are these representatives that we're electing, and I don't just mean Democrats, the Democrats clearly aren't doing anything, but Republicans, and we'll call them rhinos, I don't like the term, but for now you understand what it means. Are they actually doing what's in America's best interest, or are they doing what's in their best interest? And in my opinion, we keep electing career politicians and political elitists time and time again that just put their own incentives in front of the American people. And I'm tired of it.
All right. The 2020 election brought into light many things this last time around, many things that people have been talking about for years. One of the things that it brought into light was that our elections in this country can be tampered with. Now, the Democrats call that voter suppression.
Yeah.
The Republicans call it thievery.
Yeah.
So here's my question. Is voter integrity important this year?
100%. And it's always been important, but now it's just become the face that everyone is thinking of when they think about elections. These problems have been there for a long time. One of the main problems that almost no one talks about is outside of the voting machines themselves, there are processes that are legal in some cases that completely destroy a free and fair election. One of them is called ballot harvesting. Now, this is essentially the process where somebody, maybe a younger person, goes to somewhere like a retirement home and helps those older people vote. Now, these people might not be cognizant, they might not understand what's going on, but either way, it's rather easy to trick them to get them to put their vote in whatever category that person wants them to. This should be outlawed, illegal, and any process like this should be made 100% illegal. And anyone who's caught doing it, whether it's legal or not legal in your state, should be a felony, in my opinion. It should come with a long prison term. We shouldn't play around with this stuff. We saw a lot of it in the 2020 election. And it's something that a lot of people aren't talking about, but it's something that we could focus on making laws to ban right now in every way, whether it's just straight up ballot harvesting or anything like it, and just get rid of all those kinds of practices so that we actually have fair and free elections. I don't want somebody to take my grandmother's vote and vote for her, whether they're doing it correctly or not. If she's not in her right mind, if she's not cognizant, if she doesn't really know what's going on, it's not fair for her or anyone else for her to have somebody come take her vote and vote for her.
Right.
That's not the way the system's supposed to be.
Before we move to the next question, quickly, the number one thing you think we could do, if there's a whole list of things, you've just laid out a lot of different things that we need to be working on with voter integrity, and a lot of the states are. If you're keeping up with what's going on around the country, there's a lot of states that have taken voter integrity serious. Texas is one of them.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different conversation right now. But what do you think, quickly, just if you could just do one major thing, what do you think the one major thing would look like that could help us bring more voter integrity into our system?
Well, I would ensure that every single ballot that is cast is as auditable as anything else we need a license for. If you have voter ID, you go to a bar, they check your ID. You get on a plane, they check your ID. There's no real reason that you can't go and vote. They check your ID and you move on. It takes 5 seconds. That would solve so many problems. There's no reason to not have voter ID. And anyone saying that voter ID is somehow racist is in fact themselves making a racist argument. You see, if you are saying that someone, let's say someone's black, and you're saying they can't get an ID because they're black, you're qualifying their ability to do something based upon the color of their skin. That is racism. That is a racist argument. The left has become the racists that they swore to destroy.
All right, so voter ID, that's your number one. If we could do something,
Yes,
at least voter ID.
at least voter ID.
All right, let's move on to something even more exciting. This is really, I think, the most difficult conversation that we're having in America today. Immigration, I personally call it illegal invasion, is a major problem today. It is estimated that approximately 2 million people were in America illegally in 2021. This is the highest number in 1 year since in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
And so the administration has opened the floodgates wide. Free food, free money, free housing, free medical care, and free education. So let's just take a minute. Do you support the current approach that the Biden administration is taking towards our borders?
Well, no, and simply put, no. I support the Trump administration, what they were doing. Yes, we should finish the wall. Yes, we should deport people who break our laws by illegally coming across our border. If you were to go to any other country and just illegally enter their country, do you think they're going to give you free stuff, or are they going to deport you? If your answer was free stuff, you'd be wrong. They're going to deport you. In fact, America takes in more immigrants and refugees than any other country in the world, and we've been doing this for a very long time. And estimates actually put the total number of illegal immigrants in our country at somewhere between 15 and 40 million. So it's been a problem that's been going on for a long time. It's not a problem that's unsolvable. A lot of it has to do with a few different solutions. One, we can start getting these people to become American citizens, right? And then the criminals, we can start deporting them. But this only works if we can defend our border. So we need to finish the wall. We need to fund border security, which means we need more agents out there with better funding, gear, and equipment. Right now, they're out there. They don't have body armor. They don't have gas for their Humvees. They don't have guns in some cases. And when they do have guns, sometimes they don't even have magazines in them. It is pathetic how we are treating our border. And those are American citizens that we're putting down there to defend our border. So the Biden administration and everyone who doesn't want border security is in themselves putting American lives in jeopardy. And I don't just mean from the illegals coming across and entering into the country, but right there on the border. The people trying to defend us, you are putting their lives in jeopardy by not giving them enough funding to defend us.
Well, according to the Constitution, the federal government's one of their 3 or 4 main priorities is to secure the borders of this country. Now, we have rules and laws written by the legislature of this country, Congress.
Yep.
Now, do you believe that President Biden should follow the law, or should he just make up his own rules and let whatever happens at the border happen?
Well, I would prefer it if he would follow the law, but then if he did that, I'm not sure he'd be president right now. So obviously, he likes to use dictatorial power and just do whatever he wants. He doesn't care to go through Congress. He doesn't care to listen to sane, rational argument. In fact, the entirety of the left and pretty much every Democrat at this point is in that same boat. They believe they have such a position of power that they can abuse it without authority, without listening to anyone else's side, and just doing whatever they want. The unfortunate reality is right now, they're right. They're getting away with it because they've been getting away with it for so long. And unless people start electing politicians who are going to fight back against that, we won't ever see anything change. So here's one piece of advice. No matter who you vote for in the coming elections, make sure it's a fighting conservative. We have no more time for moderates. We have no more time for rhinos. We have no more time for half measures. If we don't vote for people who are going to fight back against the insanity of the left right here and right now, we're going to lose everything.
Well, do you think there's any remedy do we have one? Any remedy to force the President of the United States and his administration to follow the laws that were written by the Congress of this country?
25th Amendment?
That's about it. Okay.
Yeah. No, but in reality, the way it's supposed to work is states should have massive power that the federal government doesn't have. In recent time, we've been seeing this slide to the other way where the federal government keeps consuming more and more state power. That's not what we want. We want the control to be spread out so that one person like Joe Biden can't just go through and dictate to us. So what the states can do and what they should do, especially here in Texas, is finish the wall. Right. Stop being afraid of the federal government. Greg Abbott, finish the wall. Do it right now. You have the materials down there right now. You have the resources. You have people willing to do it. And all you have to do is sign an order. So you're not doing it because you're afraid the federal government will stop giving you money. Well,
you don't have a problem with the state stepping in and doing what it needs to do. Is that what you're saying?
And I'm not afraid of the federal government. In fact, I think no one should be. The federal government has power as an illusion. If we stop just turning every power over to them and letting them do whatever they want, they no longer have those powers. So just finish the wall, Greg Abbott. Finish the wall.
All right. Thank you for your detailed answer. Too often, once elected, now we've kind of talked about this before, our representatives lose their way in D.C. and they focus on getting reelected and they stop fighting for policies that protect our liberty and our life. So really, here's my question, Ryan. Do you believe in term limits?
Of course, I believe in term limits. I'm on the board for Texas term limits. I believe Congress should have term limits. There's reason to give term limits to Congress, and this is it. They work everywhere else. We have term limits on a lot of elected positions, and they work. They keep those positions turning over so that people don't always focus on their reelection campaigns and actually start focusing on making America great. And when that happens, like it should, people just look at their budgets and they say, this is what we should do, and then they do it. But when you don't have any sort of power or authority other than a vote to replace a congressman, there's no incentive for them to do what's right. Instead, we have an incentive for them to go out, campaign, raise money, and that's it. That's where the incentive ends right now in Congress. So yes, term limits on Congress is essential.
Well, it's said out there, whenever this conversation starts and whenever this topic is brought up amongst the politicians and even many citizens, the answer is always the same. Well, they do have term limits. It's called the election.
Yeah.
But as we talked about earlier, elections have some issues right now. And if you could, what would term limits in a practical way, very quickly and very simply, what would that look like? Let's say we could do it. What do you think it should look like?
I think it should look like Ted Cruz's bill. He's got one right now. There's a lot of people signing on. I would sign on. Simply put, it's 2 term limits for senators and 3 for congressmen. And that's it. That would fix a lot of the problems. Getting there is a challenge because a lot of the people signing onto this bill are doing it for campaign reasons. So what you need to do is make sure you're voting for fighting conservatives. No more moderates. We don't have time for moderates. I'm going to keep pushing this point because there's a 93% reelection rate for incumbents right now in this country, a 93%. And Congress has a 15% approval rating. That means pretty much everybody is tired of what Congress is doing, and yet pretty much everybody is voting the same people back in every single time. That should worry you. That should make you want term limits.
Hey, I think it's a great conversation. I guarantee you this will not be the last time that we talk about term limits in this cycle of elections. I can guarantee you that. Well, let's kind of change the cycle here in conversation. What do you think the role of the federal government should be in our K through 12 education system in America?
Now, this is an interesting topic because you have 2 sides of the same coin here. One, we all want the best education for our children, right? We want the best minds to come together, develop the best approach to teach the largest amount of children so that our children can end up being smarter than we were, right? And we want every generation to do this. The unfortunate reality, though, is that we've given so much control over the education system to a single government entity right now that it's kind of the same way with Joe Biden. It's just a few people in this situation sitting at the top determining what your kids are going to learn.
Right.
That's a bad thing, in case you didn't know. Here are a few solutions. Homeschooling, if you have the ability to teach your kids, or homeschooling for, say, like a group of children. Like if there is one house in a subdivision, you could teach, all the kids around you or something like that. It doesn't just have to be this public school education system. We're seeing it fail. We're seeing it fail on every level. Pretty much any statistic for any course, America's not doing great. I know a lot of smart people. I know a lot of smart people who went through the public education system. I know a lot of smart people who went through private, who were homeschooled. But the system itself that is designed to essentially teach the most amount of people is letting us down. So on one hand, I'd be completely for just abolishing the education system at this point and redoing it. Because right now you have essentially this cult of leftists at the top that are brainwashing the youth with whatever popular topic is of the time. They don't understand any of it, but they're told to push it and they push it. And there's no stopping it unless we do one of two things. One, abolish that system, which right now we don't have the numbers in Congress to do it, so we can't actually remake it. We're not going to be able to. More power to the states, though. You guys, keep going, please. The second thing we can do is vote for fighting conservatives so that we get the numbers to overturn it and make things better.
Great. And one last question for this segment. We kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but, tax reform has been a topic for decades. And so many people talk about tax reform when they campaign. In fact, most Republicans talk about tax reform in their campaigns. I'm still waiting for tax reform. And I've turned gray waiting for tax reform.
It's funny because something, I said this earlier in the show, people don't realize that for the past 50 years at least, the government has been consuming about 17% of our GDP in taxes every single year. And then you hear politicians continuously talk about how they're going to raise your taxes, how they're going to lower your taxes, how they're going to change this or that. But effectively, the government keeps taking in about 17% of our GDP. So let me help clarify the situation. The conversation should be two things. One, please, government, stop stealing my money.
Oh, they have to take your money. They have to have that.
They need it. They just have to. And it doesn't matter how much they take. They're always going to spend more.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other side of this issue is that it's really a spending issue more than a taxing issue, because the government will tax us all however much they want and they'll always spend more. But the other side of the coin is we need to have the government stop taking so much of our money and then stop spending more than they take in. It's creating this deficit, this $30 trillion deficit that's just growing day by day. So,
Okay, 30 seconds.
okay, I'll never vote to raise your taxes. I'll only vote to lower your taxes. And any fighting conservative will do the same thing. We're all sick and tired of it. We're tired of small businesses being destroyed left and right by ginormous taxes. We're tired of seeing idiotic laws like minimum wage getting raised to $15 an hour. If you don't like small businesses or you hate anyone who doesn't make $1 million a year, raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, because you'll never see some working class American with the guts to go and start their own business. They'll never be able to do it again because they won't be able to afford to start and try to innovate.
Well, thank you. That was the hard part. We're getting ready to go to another segment here in just a second, but I just want to share with everyone, the next segment that we're going to be talking about is very simple. The one thing that rarely do we hear any candidate in any race talk about is hope. How in the world is your candidacy going to bring hope to our culture, hope to your community, hope to the residents that you are going to represent? So guys, don't leave. We're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, Ryan's going to talk to us about hope for the future. So welcome back to the Hope segment. We have to understand that America is still the greatest country in the world. America was built on the Constitution of we the people, and we the people must find hope. We listen to a lot of things that are going on in our culture. We listen to a lot of news. Everything is negative, 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 and liberty is being challenged on a daily basis. But I believe that hope is the best thing that's coming for us. And so, Brian, I ask everybody the same question. If you're elected, how will you bring hope to the people so that our future looks bright and not dismal like the Democrats are trying to make it look?
You know, I hear this question a lot from anyone I talk to about politics at this point. There's a lot of pessimism going around. And people are worried and they're afraid, they're scared that there is no path forward. And let me give this a caveat. I'm not just talking about Republicans. I'm talking about Democrats. Everyone, and there's exceptions, but most everyone on both sides is worried that America is going down a path of destruction right now. There is hope. There will be better times ahead, and those better times are not long off. I promise you, 2022 and 2024, the pendulum is going to swing back the other way. We've been going down this path of big government taking away rights and just not being able to do anything you want to do for a long time. It's going to come to an end. It's not that far off. Continue to have hope, but mostly continue to fight. All right? That is what's going to win in the end, is not giving up, even in the face of what seems to be a dismal, bleak outlook for the country. There is hope, and I genuinely believe we're going to win. Keep fighting. Two things. One, get off of Facebook, go out, help some fighting conservatives campaign. Or two, if you feel like it, get on the ballot yourself. And it doesn't have to be for Congress. Run for something local. Run for something in the state level. Get out and run yourself, because when you do that, when you go and show others that fighting conservatives are willing to get out there and do whatever it takes to change this country for the better, there's hope. That is what hope looks like.
All right. You just won the election.
Woo!
Yay! Congratulations. You're on your way to Washington. You're in Washington. What are your top 3 priorities that you're going to focus on your first term? Because after all, you're the man of hope. What are they? You got 60 seconds.
All right. So, man of hope. 1, I am 100% pro-life. 2, I'm 100% pro-gun. And 3, I'm 100% pro-term limits. 4, I'm 100% pro-America too. I'm sick and tired of America First being a derogatory term from the left. America First should be something every representative uses, whether they're on the left or the right. America First is the only policy to put forth. 1, you want to keep your guns? You're going to keep your guns. I'm not going to let anyone take them. 2, you're tired of babies being murdered in the womb? So am I. I would like to see abortion completely ended, defunded and ended. And I would like people to be better educated on what abortion really is. The left is constantly saying they want to teach kids about all this stuff in school at earlier and earlier ages. They don't teach them the truth, though. They teach them their version of events. So let's teach the truth. Let's teach the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And
Right.
3rd, term limits. Very simple. Let's get them passed on Congress.
Thank you for that. All right, now here's one of my favorite parts of the whole show. It's the end of the show, but it's not over yet, because I love to just allow the candidate to share their passion with the voter. So I give everyone 2 minutes
Okay.
to share whatever it is you think. I may not have covered all the topics or all the information you'd like to share with the voter. This is your one opportunity to go on the record. You got 2 minutes. The audience is yours.
Well, my name is Ryan Jarchow. I'm a working class American, and I am a patriot, and I am as fed up as you are of the Democrats continuously taking our rights, taxing us, and destroying pretty much everything we've ever known and loved. The Democrats claim to be the party of the progressives, but the truth is they have become the party of big government crushing everything that is good. Technically, you could call that progress, but I'd call that jumping off a cliff, and I wouldn't really call that progress. We need to get fighting conservatives elected everywhere. We need them on school boards. We need them in Congress. We need them in state, local. We need them everywhere. So please, my main message to everyone is that if I can run for office, so can you. Please get out and do it. Fighting conservatives are what we need. No more half measures, no more moderates, no more rhinos. At the end of the day, I am 100% pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-term limits. Please, help me fight. If you want to keep your gun rights, I want to protect them. I had a concealed carry permit. Well, I have one now, and obviously Texas has passed constitutional carry. Is there more we can do with that at the state level? Yes. There's also more we can do with it at a federal level, because your rights should not be infringed. I'm carrying right now. I suggest you should learn about guns. If you've never owned one, go out and buy one, see what the process is like, learn a little bit more so you can educate yourself and others around you. 2, abortion, learn as much as you can about it. Go ahead, and if you have the stomach for it, watch an abortion. Watch what it really is, because it's nothing like what the left describes it to be. It's a horrible process of ripping a baby to pieces in the womb. Babies can feel pain. When you rip off a baby's arm, it's the same as you ripping off somebody's arm just out in the world. It's that horrifying. And 3, term limits. If we can pass them on Congress, we can change everything for the better. Thank you.
Well, Ryan, thank you for coming unprepared. I appreciate that.
Anytime.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank
It's
you,
been a
sir.
pleasure to have an opportunity to interview, to get your passion, get your heart. And folks, this is what this show is all about. This show is all about giving your candidates an opportunity to tell you all about themselves, their families, their passions, their beliefs, and everything that you can expect them to do. We want you to be able to hold them accountable this time around. Too often our elected officials don't feel like they have any accountability. Well, right now you've been able to listen, to hear, and now you know exactly how candidate Ryan Jarchow feels and what he's promising to you, the voters. So let's see if he does it. Let's watch him. And thank you so much for being here. And we look forward to sharing with you another Meet the Candidates next week. I'm Billy Graff, your host, and we'll see you next time.
Views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and ownership of MCPLive.tv.